Let's welcome Allie to the stage with a warm round of applause.
So I am utterly not professional, so please forgive me. You're going to get a taste of it. I'm going to talk today about when life stopped making sense and started making me. When I was young, books were really big for me. My dad was going through school, and we didn't have a lot of money, and so my mom would take us to the library. We would go into the children's section, and they'd have these huge bean bags, and we would sit and just devour books. And for me, that was something that became kind of a massive obsession. It got so bad, actually, that when I was a teenager, my friends would get grounded from friends, and I would get grounded from books. I would escape to the tree house and not come out and not do chores or anything, and so Mom would. She knew how to nail me to the wall. My dad actually traveled a lot when I was young, and I remember he'd bring home these thick books, and the books were filled with these glossy, gorgeous pictures of where he had traveled. And my mom would find me often kind of sitting on the couch looking at these pictures, and the only way I can explain it, even if it sounds a bit dramatic, was that I ached to be in the picture. I found myself looking through all these different stories and experiences and wondering if I were there, what would it be like? Interesting enough, I feel like we have, and this was talked a little bit about from Jessica, is that everybody's kind of obsessed with stories. We love this concept of stories. The interesting thing about stories is that we tend to want to share many other people's stories. The only story that I can share is my story, and I have a disclaimer. It is not a success story at all. It is just authentically my story. And hopefully as we go through a couple chapters of my life, you can gain some guidance and understanding of your life. So I had a plan when I was 25 years old. I felt like I was nailing it. I went to college. I felt like I got a great job. I had just gotten married and I was starting to travel. So I felt like this was a good time for me. About 6 months later, my marriage ended, and I started feeling a lot of conflict with my job. I felt unsure of where I was living, and I felt for a while like everything was falling apart. I'm sure you don't know what I'm talking about. So I came to Arizona. Thank you. I'm so sorry. It says hell, and we're in the Institute, but it's a place, and it's in the scriptures. So, I remember getting a job opportunity, and I needed a year off, and so I decided to come down to Arizona and help a starter school. And the starter school was gloriously told that it was this great school with great vision. When I drove down with my little car through Arizona in August, I questioned a lot of my choices, and then I drove into the parking lot of my school at American Leadership Academy. It was in a strip mall. We had Serranos right across the street, and I started hitting some serious balls of what was I doing and how did I choose to get here. Interesting enough, when I got there, about 2 months into the job, they mentioned that we were not going to make it. We only had 80 kids in the school, and we needed an it factor. So I dug deep into my crevices of my education and said, well, I did ballroom for a little while. I did professional for just a smidge, and so let's do social dance. So I shoved 15 kids into a social dance class. And interesting enough, as we got into that social dance class, I pretended like it was the coolest thing they've ever done in their life, even though they looked ridiculous and we were in a parking lot across from Serranos. In that time frame of my life, I really questioned a lot of things. And one of the areas that I loved, obviously, was books. And my friend offered me a book. It was A Million Miles in 1,000 Years by Donald Miller. And it became pretty epic for me. Donald says, sometimes the story we're telling the world isn't half as enduring as the one that lives inside of us. Now, one of the areas that I had to face, and this is the first chapter that all of us have to face, is getting real. Something about life tends to get us to the gritty, authentic, and messy. Every single one of us have layers. We all have things about us that are not as authentic as we think. If everyone in this room were authentically real, this may be what it looks like.
I've had a wonderful time tonight.
Me too.
Call me tomorrow?
I'm going to send a vague text in a couple days that leaves you confused about my level of interest.
I'll wait a full 2 days before responding.
Perfect. We're going to see each other again, will we?
No.
Wouldn't it be great if everyone said what they meant?
Did you hear it? So yeah, okay, I love it. My favorite part is when he comes over, he's like, we're never going to see each other again. And she's like, no. There's something about being authentic that is interesting. I think often a lot of us, as we experience life, it pushes us to get rid of layers. Authenticity is a collection of choices that we have to make every day. It's about the choice to show up and be real, the choice to be honest, the choice to let our true selves be seen. So Brene Brown started putting out these excellent TED Talks where she started talking a lot about vulnerability and shame. Interesting enough, as I listened to those, I connected to it in a big way because the reality was I was broken. And I don't want to share this story as if my story needs to be this massively successful again story. It's not a successful story. It's a true story about being so broken that all of a sudden I had to find out what I really was made of. And I had to dig deeper than I'd ever dug before. So we have to go straight to the philosopher of all time, Shrek. And the idea of layer by layer we can become more real, but we have to be ready for some tears. So in that process, you get into chapter 2. Now chapter 2 for me, in an interesting way as I started pulling off the layers, came in an interesting format. The power behind stupid radar. So I teach you a lot, and I have to share an experience to give you an idea of stupid radar. So when I did EFY for years and years, I don't know why I kept doing it, I love it, but it was crazy. I would travel around and I would go to campus and set them up. So this year, this particular story, I was in Gainesville, Georgia, and I was on the night shift. So my co-partner was fast asleep in his bed, and I had my little walkie-talkie and my flashlight, and I'm perusing the campus, acting like I know what I'm doing, and I hear footsteps, and I'm like, yeah, we have a runner. So I get on the walkie-talkie, and I'm like, we have a runner, everybody, we have a runner. And so then I'm thinking, I'm gonna get legit from this. Like, people are gonna think I'm so legit. So I'm like stalking in like the bushes, and I keep hearing footsteps, and I cannot find them anywhere. So finally I realize they're kind of echoing, so I back up, and I look at the building, and there are 20 boys in their whitey-tighty underwear running across the roof. And I'm completely and utterly confused. So right as the light hits them, they land on their bellies, and it's just dead silent. And I don't even know what I'm supposed to ask. Like, I'm like, what are you doing? And one brave soul's like, we don't know. Like, so then I like get on my walkie-talkie and I'm like, we have 20 boys in their underwear on the roof. And my co-partner's like, what? I'm like, don't even worry about it, I got this. So I told them to get in their clothes and get back down, we had to talk. Now, what I love about that story is the concept of stupid radar. One boy, I would love to know how that conversation went down, right? Boys know, I have no clue. Girls sit in a corner and talk about flowers and happiness, and guys run their underwear on the roof. I don't understand it, but what I do know is at some point, one boy decided, I'm gonna take off my clothes and run across the roof in my underwear. You should come with me. And then another boy, even though on his stupid radar knows that's completely and utterly stupid, what does he do? Done! And takes off his clothes too. So all of a sudden the other boys that have stupid radar throw that out the window and they all get on the roof, right? So the concept that I love about this is that there are social norms that we have on our radar, that we've been told. The challenge is that in this age group, you're in a lot of trouble because the social norms don't fit you anymore, correct? Yes. So then all of a sudden, you're toast, right? Like, good luck, bless your hearts, right? So as I learned in my life, as I took away the layers, I had to change my social norms. Because if I kept the social norms that were around me, I would be utterly depressed, utterly miserable, and discontent. So when I removed the social norm, all of a sudden, I was able to connect to the things that I really cared about and who I really was. In my program, I started to remove the feeling of stupid. And when I did, I got all kinds of dancers that jumped into my program. We created our own social norm. In high school, it was not normal for boys to dance. And I got half the football team to decide that they were ballroom dancers. This boy right here, Jeremiah, actually just the other day, got interviewed by the news. He just got a scholarship to BYU for football. And they asked him, what do you like to do for fun? And he said, oh, I like to do ballroom. And he's like, what? And he's like, yeah, I do ballroom. And I was like, yeah! Now, in your epic story, you have nothing to lose. Take away the social norms and you'll find out it doesn't change the outward acceptance of the social norm. The social norm is still there, but all of a sudden you're not looking to it to decide what you are doing in your life. You have your own epic story. Thus you get a joy as a mid-single. Say, what? I know, shocking. Chapter 3, make your master message. When I was in Kenya, Africa, I was going on a humanitarian trip. And when I was there, I experienced for the first time this concept of making your master message. I definitely spent my life very blessed and very taken care of. And so when this change happened and I moved to Arizona, I started to question a lot of things. And I questioned why hard things happened. And the biggest challenge that I had is that I felt like messiness was what we were trying to hide. It was embarrassing, right? Something you don't want people to know about. And then I started to realize that I really did want to get better from my experience. And I didn't know how to do it. I knew that I could forgive, I knew that I could walk away, but I didn't know how to get past that to actually having an epic story. Here's the truth about telling stories with your life. It's going to sound like a great idea, and you're going to get excited about it. And then when it comes time to do the work, you're not going to want to do it. People like to live a great story, but few people like the work it takes to make it happen. But joy costs pain. What if in our messes, instead of just hoping and surviving and waiting for things to change, we found purpose, meaning, and truths within our mess, step by step, moment by moment, no shortcuts. Now this is a hard concept because it means you have to stay in your mess for longer than what you want, which most of you can attest to is part of life. But I definitely think as you stay into those moments and you learn about your mess and you find meaning into your mess, it takes away the challenge of missing out on the things to learn. Remember, making your mess your message means pushing past the healing to a place where you can actually verbalize your process, teach it, and then empathize. And isn't that what it's all about? Aren't we here on this earth to connect to each other, to find relationships, and to use the things we've learned to then connect to others? Chapter 4, this is our last chapter together. You're welcome. In chapter 4, lather, rinse, repeat. Rewrite your story with God. This chapter is one of my hardest. To be authentically real, first chapter, I really had a falling out with God. I felt like God had betrayed me. I felt that there was a disconnect. In fact, I believed that God was a vending machine God. I believed if I put this much money in and I pushed D3, I would get that darn chocolate donut. And it didn't work out, and I felt like that was unfair, and I didn't get it. And so I fought it for a long time, and I still am in that process. Donald Miller says, somehow we realize that great stories are told in conflict, but we are unwilling to embrace the potential greatness of the story we're actually in. We think God is unjust rather than a master storyteller. So as I went through this process of removing my layers, as I started kind of going into this concept of how do I get rid of stupid radar, how do I take away social norms and make my own social norms, and then how do I find out how to make my mess a message, I started to notice something, and I didn't realize this before, but I loved dance. And more than I loved dance, I loved youth. And I got a program far more popular than I expected. And those from the outside in only saw a story of success. But those that were close knew it came from a broken person who needed to learn more about herself, and in that process found an epic story. And it's still continuing. We started with 15 kids in the parking lot, and we now have over 900 kids in dance. I have a national ballroom team that's gone to compete 3 years in a row, and every time it happens, I'm blown away. I don't understand it myself, I just don't. But I will definitely jump on the train and go with it. So now my plan has changed. My epic story with God. Hard work, deep joy, relationships, travel, failures, loneliness, inspiration, dance. The one thing that I learned the most about is that as I looked at those pictures as a kid and I wanted to escape into that story, I also started to realize that I have my own story that God knew before, and He wanted me to be a part of something much deeper than I ever expected. That does not change that the social norms are there. That does not change that I'm still single. That does not change that I'm quite messy. That does not change that I have a bunch of high school kids that I claim as my children because I don't have any of my own. But it does change that I've had story after story after story that has changed my belief system that you are in something epic now. And instead of waiting as a mid-single to get to where you're supposed to go, start building your story. I'm so grateful that life stopped making sense and started making me. Thank you.